This video is sponsored by Chakra 17. Awaken your vitality with our anti-aging coffee.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. We have back returning guest, Mr. CaptKyle. We've been eagerly awaiting this conversation, and it could not come at a more perfect and ideal time. And he's going to be giving his musings and insights on all things geopolitical, financial, and also his observational musings on where he sees things in the shape-shifting of the world today. If you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share. It helps the channel grow and others to gain in the knowledge you're currently being afforded. As you know, CaptKyle is a former captain of a military ship in the Houston, Texas area, has since retired and has been a truther for many decades in this movement, and his reputation is well healed. And we are honored, as always, to have him back on the podcast. CaptKyle, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. So correction.
Please.
I've never been in the military.
Okay.
I actually worked as a merchant marine. I did do emergency services alongside with the Coast Guard, though, for many years.
Okay.
And then on top of that, actually, I was a first responder for any kind of oil-related incidents anywhere in the Gulf, emergencies like the Event Horizon, something like that. I would have been the first ship on scene. So I did those kind of things for a long time. I actually did salvage work where you lift, bring boats up from the bottom and stuff, things of that nature. So I've done a lot of that in that aspect, but not actually directly with the military as a part of the military. I always want to make that correction because I don't want anybody to think I'm ever trying to operate from that standpoint ever.
Sure. No, I appreciate the accuracy, and we're certainly not, trying to mislead anybody or anything like that. That was just our understanding. So getting from the horse's mouth is always the best way to go. So thank you. Thank you for the correction. Okay, so now that we've established that, but everybody kind of knows who you are at this point anyway, but a lot to talk about, as always, no shortage of things to discuss. Let's start with the first thing, CaptKyle, right off the bat. From our first podcast many months ago, you said something that really stayed with me personally, and I hope it did for a lot of our audience members respectively as well. You said, and I quote, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing I heard you say was, you said by 2026, everyone's going to be on board. They're going to know what's going on. Whether they choose to accept it or not, everything will be out in the open for everybody to see. Do you recall that?
Yeah, 26 is the time period for complete awareness as well as disclosure for everything that we think we know, but we don't know.
Right. And so, and again, the goal of this question is not, as always, is to not ask for dates and rates or anything like that, but just for timeframes. I think, we know the midterms are coming up this time next year. We're on the, everything is leading to that politically. But January 1st, from a number of things, from Nasara Jassara, and prior to that, we believe for the reset and that sort of thing. We saw the deepfake AI with MedBeds put up, from True Social with President Trump. Part of the wake-up operation, obviously, was talked about by Caroline Leavitt in the press corps. She didn't shy away from it. She certainly didn't deny it. She got in front of it, but she lauded and applauded its transparency. My question is I think what's on a lot of people's minds is, are we going to see this sooner in 26 or later on?
So we'll see a lot of different events and circumstances between now and 26, but really 26 is the culmination of all the events that are going to be super substantial, but also lead to great change.
Okay, fair enough. So it's a kind of an evolving process from this quarter in leading into next year, essentially.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. That's what I wanted people of your words, of your own volition here.
Just like I had said that the end of September would be the initiation of basically the justice system and the first arrest would take place. Right. And we look at the very last week of September and you have the indictment that came out, and that indictment itself leads to all of the initial roads from there that are Clapper, Obama, Brennan, and you name it. So they're all a part of the same thing. And whenever you do something like that, basically it's a setup for the people, the general public, on what's actually taking place. And then basically how many times there's been all roads lead back to Obama, setting that stage. But then we also had the federalization, or the nationalization, I should say, of DC, which is no longer DC, it's actually Washington. And then you have the JAG officers that are actually in there doing military court work that is being portrayed as they're doing work that it has to do with immigration, but there is no immigration in Washington itself, right? And so a lot of these individuals, they're going to be presented to the public in one aspect, but when it comes into what's going to be the true nature of why they're actually being indicted and why this is happening through these grand juries, it's going to lead to sedition and treason and those things which are military tribunals that the actual criminal court, civil court is not suited to actually deal with. And then it's also leading right now to basically having the judges that are out there right now basically held accountable for their criminality in which they're actually operating in and bring them down as well. So we're working on the justice system right now as we speak in more ways than what people realize.
So in essence, if I'm hearing you right, CaptKyle, it's sort of a multi-jurisdictional task force where a lot of things are converging at once from different aspects.
Yes, and so what needed to happen, and this is also something that I work with another individual with One Republic, is establishing and having those jurisdictions back operational and functional that have not been in place for our entire lifetimes. So these things had to happen so that it gives them the framework in which they can operate. Just because it was there, it was not structured in a way because of the corporate construct that was there, the ability to actually operate in something that had basically no legs on it. It does now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really, what was really the first thing that opened that door for the JAG to be able to come in publicly is Alligator Alcatraz, when they brought in the JAG officers to do the actual judge work for the immigration, saying, we don't need you guys, we got it taken care of, and they brought in the JAG officers. Well, that's a bam, bam, wham, thank you, ma'am, in the door, out the door type situation. It's not like the civil courts where everything gets postponed. You got to come back again, and it nothing ever gets freaking done. They're let's hear it, done, 5 minutes, have a nice day. This is how it is.
Yeah, short and sweet, quick trials, basically what he was talking about.
Just like Trump has always said when he's talking to Xi Jinping, quick trial, quick trial. That's how many times you've heard that? Quick trial. What do you mean quick trial? Quick trial. We get them, we kill them, we put them in, we right out the door. If it means execute, whatever it is, we do it. Quick trial. They know the process.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, continuing with that theme, now we're in, I thought this was going to happen 2 years ago, but here we are, October, 2 years later, the shutdown. A lot of things going on with that, right? Because he can drain the swamp 61 days, and that's going to cement it constitutionally. My question to you is how long do you think the shutdown will actually last, optically, of course, and is the EAS built into the shutdown?
I don't think that the EAS is built into the shutdown. The reason being is that the EAS has a global purpose, not a United States purpose. Everybody always puts all their attention on the United States, and where the United States goes, so goes the world. But blah blah blah, whatever, right? And that's really how so much attention gets put in these areas that don't need that kind of attention because it's not operating in that manner. And when we go to start to look at what has to actually happen for an EAS in that magnitude of what we're talking about, it has to be something that's a global event or events that actually brings forth that kind of awareness for the public globally, not just in the United States, because we know that the EAS specifically was actually implemented and put forth through the satellites and through Starlink and everything else for the global network and not just for the Americas. So with that, it has to be something in that magnitude for humanity to look at itself as we are at that precipice, and that's what it's for.
I see. That makes sense. So how, again, time frames are fluid, but are we, I mean, so it's a relative thing, but are you thinking 3 to 10 days kind of in the house are going to show people on a loop militarily? How do you see that playing out?
That's kind of the idea that we've been, kind of branded with, but how it all really plays out, I'm not really sure on exactly, because that hasn't been well defined in that aspect, right? It's always been assumption. And you know what happens when you assume stuff. It makes an ass out of you and me both. And that's exactly the deal. But in that same breath, a lot of those assumptions are there on purpose for misdirection for the enemy so that they never know what's going on. And, there's also individuals that are out there that have been, clickbaiter. This is going to happen this date, that date, this. And people always say, and I understand it, that hurts the movement because it gets people down and they get depressed and then they lose confidence and all that other kinds of stuff. Yes, I understand from that aspect, and I would never go down that path because it's not the way I would do things, but it is a part of the actual plan. Why? Because there are individuals that are out there that would not actually engage in it if they didn't have that emotional roller coaster attached to it. And so you have to be focused on all aspects of humanity and being able to reach all people, not some, the majority. You've got to be able to have something that actually impacts and has a reach into all aspects. So that's a part of how it has to happen. Yeah, people get, and this is one of those sayings, people get mad in the same panties that they got, happy in. And it's the same thing, right? And you don't, when operating with the military or that kind of structure, they're not looking to your feelings and how you feel about stuff. They're actually putting things out there for emotional responses. This is a psychological operation on purpose, and it is to break that controlled mindset that everybody has been programmed into. And until you get to that point where you just feel almost broken, you can't truly get that control off of you. It's like you get to that, almost where enough is enough and you're just losing your mindset. That's whenever the programming finally gets broken off of people that are deeply entrenched in that mindset. Other people have had it broken easier and it didn't take that extreme. But if you look out there to this day, how many people question things but are still fast asleep? There's a lot. Now they question things, they're pissed off at things. Those are emotional triggers intentionally to cause people to be able to get to a point where that emotion overruns that psychological events that have taken place within their life to put them into that mindset, because that's where chaos comes into play. Chaos actually breeds peace. People don't realize that, but that's exactly what happens. And we are in that stage where as our frequency, as the planet's frequency actually accelerates, it causes those areas which are low vibrational to begin to vibrate at a higher state, which causes it to basically start to deconstruct. And that's what everything that we're seeing around us is all of these systems, all these things are starting to begin to implode on themselves. And if you look at it from a standpoint of this is positive. Why? Because you have to tear things down before they can be rebuilt. You can't go in and and remodel a house and just put some paint on the walls and think everything's going to be pretty again. No, you tear it all inside out, you gut it, you start all over, you work with the bones of it potentially, or if it's so bad, you tear it all the way down and then rebuild it. Well, yeah, during that process, it's ugly, but the final results are what you're looking for. And it's hard for most people to be able to have that vision, to be able to see something completed before it's actually done. And a lot of people in construction, people that build things, they have that mindset of that they can see something being completed before it's ever even torn down. And then they have that mindset the entire time. And they actually begin to improve things that they didn't see because it was still covered up once things get torn down. Oh, well, this is here. I can do this. I can do that. And it'll make things better on the end that I didn't really know until I had it torn out. And so right now we're in that process of tearing down all those systems. And when people, they're on two different paths right now. People that look at it in the mindset in which I just framed it as that we must tear these things down. It is a good thing to tear them all down. It's a good thing for this chaos to be happening because of what's going to be birthed through all of this. Or you have the other mindset that the world's falling apart. It's getting worse every day. And they have this mindset of misery and destruction. Woe is me. Why does it always have to continue to go down this path? Nothing's ever going to happen. And that mindset, well, that's the mindset of they're going to continue down, unfortunately, because that's what they're focusing all of their energy in. It's that half full, half empty mindset of where these two trains, because we're all on them, going in the same direction, but on different paths. And it's critical to be that individual right now that sees things, that don't have expectations on things, that becomes an observer and actually looks at things that are happening and then puts their own ideas, thoughts, wants, and desires into the positivity of what is going to come from that. Those are very important factors that so many people overlook right now, because in their world, everything is, they're focused on the money, they're focused on their RV, they're either focused on the justice, and their focuses are on all of these material things that this world is not a permanent thing. It is holographic in nature. It's proved. We don't have to go down that path. And it is through our co-creation, our reality becomes what it is. And the most important thing is to walk in inner peace right now with that mindset of looking at everything in its positive nature, even the most negative thing. Why? Because that is actually still part of the plan. Whose plan? God's plan to bring us to the place of where we are headed to. You got to tear things out. Things have to be destroyed so that we can move forward. And it's hard for a person that puts so much stock in the permanency of this where we're at, but it's not. This is only an experience. This is not permanent at all. None of it ever has been. But the one thing that is permanent is your spirit and soul, and that's who you really are. That is the permanent. That is eternal. And if you really are focused on that mindset, then this just happens to be an experience. And I always try to keep putting in that kind of perspective, because that's what will give you inner peace no matter what you see. It's like going to an amusement park for the day and seeing all kinds of crazy stuff and then being able to come out of it. Well, that's the same scenario, because this is not reality. This is our experience of being in a flesh suit, basically, because that's not who any of us are. That's what's really important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, taking it back to, the biblical context, right? Proverbs 23:6, as a man thinketh, so he or she becomes mindset, right? And, who are you hanging around? Go ahead.
The renewing of your mind, and that the importance parts of the Romans, when it talks about
Romans 12
the
too.
renewing of your mind, is that you have to take the old stinking thinking out so that you can put in the good, positive, corrective thinking in. Well, the world doesn't want you to do that. It's always got all the noise to keep you from doing that, right? And so God showed me a long time ago that it's a process of out with the old, in with the new. You can take a 5-gallon bucket of the most disgusting water in the world, and you can 1 cup it at a time out and in with fresh, brand new spring water. And over a period of time, nonstop, that will actually become very fresh, clean water that you could actually consume. At the beginning, would probably make you sick and kill you. But at the end, it would actually be consumable, fresh, pure water. And in that process, though, it's how could that actually happen? Well, it's a process of out with the old, in with the new, out with the old, in with the new. And that's what we've been trying to do, is take all this programmable nonsense out. The only thing that's permanent is death and taxes. Well, those are both lies that's kept everyone neutered. Everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so that thank you, CaptKyle. That kind of feeds into what my next question was going to be, which kind of, you've already started the process of mindset. And again, Romans 12:2, right? Be ye not conformed to the world, but transformed, like you said, the renewing and washing of your mind. So going back to our last podcast, I think we need to revisit this, because it's an important point. As I'm observing, you're observing, whether it's on our own respective channels or other people's quality channels that are out there, and there are many. I'm seeing out in the different groups that people are reacting, and again, it's by design, the matrix, as you said, the extremes, right? You've got on one side, people are really excited, they're really amped up, they can see it, and the other side, like, I've hit the wall, I've had it, I can't take anymore, I'm about to lose my cool, putting it politely. And, it's implied what that means. But, so I get that. There's two extremes. And that's done on purpose by the system to keep us divided. But the question is, what strategies can people employ to break that? And one of the things I've been thinking about to kick things off for you to discuss your musings is, who are you hanging around? Who are your influences, right? Very few of us have the same friends that we had, as an example, in 3rd grade. I mean, some do, but I think the majority of people, as you go in your life, you evolve, you grow, you change, you get married, so on and so forth. Your sphere of influence changes, right? And there's no law that says you have to keep the same people your whole life. It'd be nice from a loyalty standpoint, but it has to be based on something, right? So cutting ties with dead weight, I think you talked about controlled demolition. Cutting ties emotionally and spiritually with dead weight of things that are no longer serving you, even if that means people, to advance your destiny of what you were put on earth for, right? That's more important than anything else, to do what God equipped you to do. And then the money and all the other things are just extenuations of your soul to that, without getting, overly in the weeds of it. So, beyond grounding, changing your diet, the food you eat, the water you drink, but the people that you hang around, and maybe cutting ties with certain relationships that are no longer, serving you, or maybe, or draining your energy from you. If you're trying to move forward, it would be much akin to having 2 good tires in the front of your car and 2 bald tires in the back stuck in the mud. You aren't going to be able to get out and move forward. So what do you say to that? And what other strategies would you recommend to help with this?
So a lot of it has to do with finding your inner peace. And when you begin to find your inner peace, then that echoes into your circle of influence, and how things are manifesting right now in a slow but methodical way is causing the change internally and externally within your own aura and your own presence. And what will begin to happen, more so than we've all actually experienced it already, from being shut out and this and that and the other, and having people that's coming into your contact space and that want to be a part of that, and then others, totally, you're the crazy person and we don't want anything to do with you anymore, and that's good, because that's actually necessary. The part that we're entering into is an acceleration of that, which really is going to accelerate a lot over next year into 26 and going into 27, where the perception of the two camps, meaning those that are on this doom and gloom side, is going to continue down that pathway, which at any time they can get off of. And when they do, they could actually get off of that path and be on a path that's further advanced than what you may be, and you've been doing it forever. And this is all a part of how that process works. But as we go down this pathway, then naturally the people that are going to be attracted to your vibration will be drawn into your camp. It's going to actually start to happen more and more naturally. You're going to it'll actually cause more and more separation between things that we have had to, where we say, you've got to look at yourself internally, do these things, try to make cuts and cords and all this kind of stuff that you've been having to work on yourself, will become actually happening without you having to do anything, because of the nature of your vibration, where we're going into 26, 27 area. Okay. And so you'll have basically people that are drawn into your circle of influence because you're like-minded, you vibrate the same. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be something that happens naturally. You're not going to have to be trying to work on it. Oh, I'm having strife with this person. No, it's going to automatically cause separation. You're going to go different paths. And it's not going to be something that you're going to have to say, oh, I really need to make this decision. It's causing problems. No, it's going to happen naturally. And it's going to bring that separation. And whether it be work, different structures out there, investments, you're going to begin to see things accelerated in a vision mindset of those things in which you're envisioning now coming true. And as they do, it's going to continue down that path. It's like when you start going down a hill, you start getting faster and faster and faster, right? Well, we're starting down that pathway now, and we're going to start accelerating. As we do, those things that we had to try to work so long to try to manifest, do all of this stuff, is going to just start happening to you in a way that's like, I never knew it was going to be this easy, because it really is supposed to be. But because we've been so oppressed, suppressed, and vibrationally downgraded, it was almost impossible. It was like a major work of art to try to get anything really accomplished in the work that had to be brought into it, even in the manifestation of creation, because we are co-creators. And in that, there was always a major lag in those things in which we were operating in, trying to create, and them actually coming to pass, whether they be positive or negative. And that was for our benefit, because we were in basically diapers and into training wheels and so on and so forth. And that's kind of the process that we're going through. Just like med beds and all these other things. These are all technologies that in our higher selves, we don't need any of that stuff because we will align ourselves through creation and through our creative nature that we will be able to manifest that stuff. We will be able to manifest any kinds of needs that we may have as we get further down this path. And so med beds, all those kind of things, those are all just training wheels to get us to where we're going down the road. And so it's just like, this is another part of it. This is another part of it. This is another part of it. But where we are going to in the latter stages of where we're headed to, it's so important that when you actually get into 5D or above, the mental stability that an individual has to have because of how easy it is to be able to create. Not like it is now, okay? That's where that major lag, days, weeks, months, years of negative, scared thinking comes into manifestation, where it will be manifest easy. So if you had a bunch of people, no matter what their love, good people, whatever they are, got into that situation, but
go ahead.
So it's so funny because we get interrupted and it has absolutely nothing to do with just life. And sometimes it happens that way, and it's how we have to deal with it. But where we were actually talking is that when we get into higher dimensional spaces, that the ability to manifest becomes so easy in our reality at that point. The danger that it presents to everyone for someone that still hasn't dealt with those underlying fears or things of that nature that are still major suppressed, that if we get into a 5-dimensional reality and all of a sudden you begin to have fear come up of something that you never were able to overcome, whether it be, being afraid of the dark and the monster, whatever it could be, you would manifest that into a reality for everyone. And so that's why it's so important that you can't bring the baggage with you. The baggage has to be dealt with now. The cleaning out has to be done now. And that's the point of this controlled demolition, of getting rid of all of those things and all of the systems that are out there that you're not or haven't been exposed to yet, but are becoming exposed to, that have been operating in the shadows, that were corrupt and criminal and just evil. Well, once they're exposed to that, well, then you will be able to not allow something like that to ever come into existence again, right? But if you're never aware of it, it was like, when you used to talk to people 4, 5, 6 years ago, even some people today, that you would say that they're criminal in the Congress and everything else. Hollywood's, they're all corrupt, evil, and so on and so forth. And Hollywood is, a part of their spiriting and everything else. From the wood itself was a part of, that's what they actually made, their witch sticks and all that, all that stuff, right? But when you start talking about that and you say, well, but they're also into, child rape, and they're into drinking blood and all this stuff. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. They're corrupt, but they're not that corrupt. I mean, we know that they're in it for themselves, and because there's always that disconnect of just how far that corruption goes, right? And I think it's more so than anything a means to be able to protect that own person of how dysfunctional everything could be around them in their life, and they would rather not see it. It's kind of like pulling your head over the covers when something bad might be happening because you just don't want to see it. And if you don't see it, it's not as bad as what it would be if you actually did see it. And it's being presented to the public in a methodical way, just enough to break people, but not destroy them. That's a very important part, because if you were to go down some of these rabbit holes that are out there, you cannot unsee those things in which are. And in doing so, there's not really a way to come back from unless it's spiritually led. I mean, going through Anthony Weiner's laptop and everything that was on it, I did, and it almost killed me, because you cannot unsee the horror that's on it. You can't be human and do those things. You just can't. There's no way impossible. And I know why those men committed suicide, those New York detectives. You have to understand something. When you've seen people in emergency services, as I've had and everything else, you've seen it where people have gunshot wounds, you've seen where people have suicided themselves and all these other things. And it really is, yeah, it's bad, but you don't live it, and it don't just not that. But when you've seen something like that's here on those videos, it actually never stops playing in your mind, ever. And it just torments you day in, day out, day in, day out. And there's no recovery. There's no rest from it at all. And so I can see why they took that way, because I was on a point where I couldn't sleep for so long that it was actually killing me, and I was almost dead from it. Health-wise, it was just, I was really deteriorated. My wife was like, you have to stop. You can't continue down this path. I'm like, there's nothing I can do, honey. I can't do it. I can't. And it's like, if I didn't have that dark night of the soul where the Spirit of God took me into the throne room and told me that it's no more, it will never happen again. He was telling me in that reality where time doesn't exist. The present, past, and future are all at the same time. It's not like we're on this linear structure here. So when he says, you should know this, that when the Spirit speaks to you in that moment in which it's happening. You may not be in it yet, but it's already happened, right? We might need to go a week, 2 weeks, 5 months, a year to get to that point where he's actually speaking of it. And then it's actually becomes real. And too many of us give up before that actual moment happens. And it's usually a step or two away. And it's just, we give up right then because we just can't. And that's how the enemy is. It knows just how far you can go. And it tries to deflate you enough to cause you to give up, because it's got no other power over you. You have to give into it and to give up, because if you don't, then you own the power. You always have. And so we have to either comply or give up our authority and our power unto something else. And that's what we've been kind of conditioned into ever since we were little kids, as, you know, for the leadership and the government and everyone else, they're going to do it for us. And, you know, back in the day, if you didn't do it, it didn't get done. If you didn't learn how to like fight fires, take care of yourself, defend yourself and your property and your family, then nobody did it, because that was your responsibility to know these things, because that's what you had to do. And it's like we're being educated through a crash course of civics, government, personal responsibility, finance, everything that none of us was educated in school in the right way. Because why? It was all meant to keep us in the dark. every bit of it, right? The victors, they always write the story. Well, they also write the education book, the history of it too. And that's what we've been fed. Now we all know that it was all a bunch of BS. And the more we know that it's BS, the more it leads us into more BS.
Right.
And it's just a vicious little train that we go down, right? So
unwinding. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I remember seeing the Hunter Biden laptops and when I first really saw front and center in the music business of the pedophilia and the trafficking of women and children. I mean, you can't, unfortunately, the horrific things that though they went through that I saw, you can't unsee it. But that eliminates the cognitive dissonance once you see it. And we're still going to have that. But, again, I think we need to come together as, this community and our familial communities where people live. I'm trying to bridge a gap here, Captain Kyle, because
and that's going to happen more and more the further we get down this road, because we're going to naturally be drawn to those people that are like-minded in like ways, even within our neighbors, our community, and then it's going to grow from there, because it's like, I've already started. I know every single one of my neighbors, every single one of them around me on all directions. They all know what I do, and they all know where I'm at. They all follow me in secret, which is okie dokie, because they're not there yet. But when they become there, they always come over and ask me about stuff. And when I'm outside and working on my truck or something, they'll come over, we'll talk. But that relationship has already started to be established, and I started it, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 years ago, just as being neighborly and being neighbors with them. And it's grown more and more so over the years. And the thing that we have to be careful about, John, is telling other people what our specific visions are, because we all need to be a part of our own co-creation of those things in which we hope for and desire within our local community, our family, and those things in which that's what we need to envision, each one of us, of what are your expectations, John, for your family? What's your expectations for right in the neighborhood area in which you live? What is the expectation of your own community, of your town or city that you live in? What are those expectations that you're envisioning for a year from now, 5 years from now? What are you envisioning for your kids to grow up in? That's the thing that everyone's always had to be told everything, right? They've been microwaved. They can't make a decision without being told. And then people always ask you, well, how do you feel about this? How do you think this is going to happen, right? And so I'm really cautious about giving people my own vision of how I've seen it, because I've actually already seen it and I've already been there. And that's okay, but I don't want to put my expectations and visions on people. The thing that I try to stay focused on are how to make it through the things in which we're going through today, but focus on those things in which you're envisioning for tomorrow, and that be what's important.
I know exactly what you mean, Captain Kyle, because in my relationship with God every day, we've talked about this before, he equips you with certain things that he wants you to share with people. And there's other things you don't need to share. There's things that just need to be held back, that you're going to get your validation from him. You don't need it from other people, and they won't understand anyway. He puts the veil of, blockage between some people's eyes and ears of things he doesn't want them yet to see, whether that's friends, family.
I deal with that with my wife right now, every day.
There's a lot of couples dealing with that.
So she's awake or awakening, right? But in certain areas, other areas, not even much. And I'm okay with that. I stay away from them on purpose. And I always know that the day that God decides to pull the scales back on her eyes, she could be 500 times further down this path than I am, because that lady is more spiritual than I am. But the reason that I think that she's not where I am or necessarily or where she could be is because her roots are way different than mine. And her fundamentals are completely different than mine. So to her, the things in which was easy for me to look at, evaluate, discard, and know something different wasn't a foundation for me, but it is for her. And that could be very detrimental for her until she's ready for it. And so I don't push it. I don't even go there. It's like, it's not my responsibility to enlighten you, wake you, any of those things. My responsibility is just love you. That's it.
That and free will. We can't, that's the one thing we can't impede on is even God doesn't impede our free will. We cannot do that with others. So yeah, I'm with you there. CaptKyle, for the sake of time and respecting your time, I have one last question I think that can encapsulate things nicely. Now I understand it goes back to what you said, the prefacing your point of everything on life is a narrative. We're in a scripted matrix that we're moving out of with mindset change, attitudinal change, and everything here is ultimately temporary. But we still have to move people, as you said, systematically from one phase aspect of life into the other. So this is a good marking. And I think we're in the flood stage now. I think we can agree. We finally arrived at that point after much anticipated waiting. We're here. So President Trump said back in August, if you recall, he said, come December into January, the economy is going to be rocking. And that has many meanings to it. I think that means Nasara Jasara. I think that means the reset. We see what's happening with gold and silver. We're seeing this sort of, XRPs getting ready to be released as a bank away from the main banks. I don't think we need to worry about bail-ins anymore because my understanding is a lot of them are getting controlled and roped in by Trump and the right guys in the military. So all that being said in the pot, is that your assessment of the way you see it between October and before the end of the year, that we're finally going to have, in many iterations between arrests and financial and all this other stuff, we're finally going to have a great holiday season that we've been anticipating for some time?
I hope so. And I'm cautious to say when. I know that it's coming and it's not that far out. Okay. But the reason I'm cautious is because the way that could be interpreted is multiple ways, that. And it could be that that's the final stages of exposure, collapse, destruction, so that it could be made anew, which when would be a perfect time for that to actually happen? Spring. I'm talking about all new life. Everything new starts to come about right then, right? And my own personal opinion, nothing to validate it, okay, is I think that that's where the real blessings and change are going to start, because we're going to go through a lot of shit between now and then. So excuse the French, but that's just the truth. And I think that mindset of, new life, new birth, new everything, spring, and the correction of the long winter, and that's truly when all of the manifestations and blessings really begin to start to come to pass. Well, could it be February? Yeah. Could it be March? Yeah. I don't really know when those things are. Nobody does. It's intentionally been kept so close to the hip that almost no one truly knows when, even though I know that it's already happened. It has. I know the banks are already in line with it. I've already know that. I could have released stuff that would have gotten people fired, but I would never do that because that would be the means to an end would have been completely contradictory to moving in a manner of love. I would have hurt people intentionally just to be able to expose something that we already know is happening. And that's completely the wrong mindset. If you're living in that kind of mindset, then you might need to check yourself. You might need to do a few things to be getting on the right train. So that's happened. We know that these things are coming to pass. We just don't know when. And what I want to encourage your audience and all of the people that listen to this, the less you focus on the wins, the easier it is to wake up each and every day and to start your day with knowing that things are going to change. And the focus that you want to have is that the things in which I say, those things in which I do, is a vote from me on the future that I choose to have. And when you begin to walk in that kind of proclamation every single day, it begins to change the way you view things. It changes the way you interact with people. And the less you have the opportunities, because you don't want to participate, and you won't, in conflict with people when they are doing things or saying things that used to cause you to want to fight and defend. There's no reason to defend the truth, ever. I've been telling my people and Kelly this since the first time I met them. Don't defend the truth. You put the truth out there and it will stand and defend on its own. A lie is what needs to be defended. The universe knows the truth. When you speak the truth, you don't need to defend it. Christ didn't defend one thing he ever spoke. He spoke it and walked away from it. It's out there. Do what you choose with it. The truth is the truth. And so when we put our vote in, it's like my spirit is saying, I choose that in which the way I choose to vision and do my day, how I choose to act and how I choose to believe, versus allowing the world to influence me through my eyes, ears, on how I'm going to perceive and vote on things. I don't care what's happening out there because I know what's happened in here. And because what's happened in here, it changes the way that I see it all out there.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate your perspective. That's why I asked. I mean, it's interesting because the actual Hebraic calendar, the correct calendar, instead of the Julian one that we're on currently as we're switching, the actual new year would be April 1st. When you say
I know,
spring.
and that's why I kind of believe that.
That's why I was thinking you were headed with it.
Calendar.
Right. That's
first, the beginning of the new year. And that's what I truly believe. And whether that is how and that may be one of those things that we correct and change leading into that as well, because all these things need to be fixed. We can't take the old baggage into the future.
I agree. The only thing I would say as a complimentary thought to what you said, CaptKyle, is we both also know that we've talked a lot about this word. It's been implied, momentum. President Trump is smart. He knows that you're going to need momentum way before the final destination of the new year of April. You're going to have to show GDP growth long before that. And it takes a full quarter to see what the previous quarter did. So I believe in the prophetic word of Kim Clement, they will fall in the fall. We're in the fall now. I believe we're going to see that aforementioned momentum financially, other things, arrest, whatever we talked about this quarter. And then it will dovetail into next year to carry us through the storm as we get to our new springtime momentum. That's kind of my 2 cents on it, but do with that what you will.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I, last early spring, God told me that same thing, that they're going to fall in the fall, and not just the people that we see, as in the people we think, but I'm talking about also the influencers and all those people that have been doing the things that they shouldn't have been doing. They're going to have enough rope to hang themselves, and we're seeing them do it now on the things in which they're choosing to do, and people are seeing that. And that's why when you said this earlier, it's really important to be careful who you follow, what you allow into your spirit. And whenever I listen to someone, are they someone that tell me what I want to hear? Are they tell me something that I need to hear? And that they don't base what they tell me off of people's opinion. It hasn't changed. So, because people that need acknowledgement and that they're always telling people what they need to, people want to hear, it's like, whatever's the big story, they're all over it. And they want to be the first out there, and no. And then a lot of times it's wrong, back and forth, and it's just up and down. It's crazy. And it's like, why are they doing that? Is it about them, or is it about the people that they're doing it for? Are they getting paid? All of those things I ask myself when that happens, right? But whenever someone waits, they don't be the first one out. They don't care whether you like what they say or they don't say, but their message is never changed. That's something I put a little more stock in. Until they prove me wrong.
Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race, and God's patience is a protracted thing. I mean, great things take time. We've got to get off that microwave mindset. It's not healthy for food, and it's certainly not healthy for the mental food either. So a lot of great points you made, Captain Kyle. As we close for today, as always, last thoughts for the audience, and where can people find your work, please?
You can find me on Telegram, and you find me on X, Rumble, Kick, and I may be going back to YouTube because I think I might be able to get my channel back there. Now that things have been kind of controlled a little differently. But if I do, I'll probably end up getting kicked back off, because I'm not going to say they unalive themselves. I'm going to say they suicide themselves, and because it's just stupid. I mean, to have to continue. And so that's why I like Rumble versus that. But I mean, who knows? But I may go back down that path. But like I said, there's a lot of fakes out there. I'm not ever going to contact you. I'm not ever going to sell you anything. I'm not going to talk about the QFS. I'm not going to tell you that you need to do anything, because you don't. It's already established, and you can't do anything for it anyway, because I've actually, not me, but I know somebody personally that have spoken directly to Space Force about the QFS and who has access to it. And nobody that you would ever be talking to, period, has any access to it at all.
Yep. True.
So, period.
It's just one of those things, you just needs to let it roll out and let it hit you, basically. So, yeah, totally. Well, we'll leave all those links, Captain Kyle, in the description, and our chief sponsors, for currencies. If you are looking to add to Cache what you have, we'll leave that link in the description below here in the video. Take a look at that at your leisure. Captain Kyle, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time, expertise, and your musings. We appreciate your energy as well, and we look forward to talking with you down the road.
Awesome. Y'all have a blessed day.
You too. God bless.